Today, we're joined by one of Marissa's closest friends, Suzannah Merritt. Together, Marissa and Suze dive into what it really means to feel stuck or languishing and why so many of us build lives that look good on paper but still don't feel fulfilling. They talk about sobriety, healing old patterns, their experience at the Hoffman process, finding your passion by following joy instead of logic, and why the life you truly want often begins when you're willing to let go of the one you've outgrown. I know you will all enjoy today's episode. Let's dive in. Welcome to In Alignment. I'm Annie.
And I'm Marissa. You were meant to find this today, and we're so glad you're here. Suze, welcome to In Alignment. So excited to have you here.
Hi.
For everyone listening, Suze is one of my best friends. I've actually mentioned her on the podcast many times before, and we have been friends since college. But in addition to that, Suze has actually been very inspiring to me on my own healing journey, and a lot of the things that I have done that have made a difference in my life, she did first. So very excited to have her here, talk about some of the things that we have in common, like we both went to Hoffman and how she's found her passion essentially. So yeah, we're very excited that you're here, Suze. Do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself a little bit as well?
Yeah, first of all, just so proud of the work that you and Annie are doing. It's so amazing to see. And people come up to me all the time and are like, love to hear what Marissa's working on. It's just so amazing. So my name is Suzannah Merritt. I think a lot of my trauma was holding me back and keeping me stuck in a place several years ago. And I was reading a New York Times article about languishing. And so that was kind of been the theme of that journey, is trying to figure out how I could get out of this hole of not being extremely happy, but also not being extremely sad. And the middle ground for me was torture, because I knew there was more. And I wasn't really pushing myself to figure out what that might be. So all of this to say, I now feel like I'm really happy that I've been able to find my passion. I'm a beekeeper and I run a company called Apis. I just love being able to mix all the things that I love, which is beekeeping, tablescapes, entertaining, aesthetics, all into the one product that my bees provide, which is honey. So that's what I'm up to nowadays.
Amazing. I'm going to define languishing for the audience because I think this is one of the best words to describe what so many of us are feeling. But languishing is essentially feeling a general sense, lack of motivation. To Suze's point, it's not depression, but it's not joy. It's you're in this state of just treading water, of feeling like nothing really excites you. And you don't have that feeling of something lighting you up, and you're just, you're not happy, and you're not clinically depressed. And I think a lot of us are stuck in that place of thinking, okay, my career isn't horrible, or I'm not, I'm able to pay my bills. I have a job that's good, but I'm not happy. I'm dating, or I'm in a relationship, but I don't feel happy or fulfilled. And so I think a lot of us also can feel selfish for trying to chase that sense of fulfillment, but ultimately are stuck in this state of not being super happy. And the last time I really remember, what sort of set off this journey for you is you had been at Google for 4 years, and it was a great job in so many ways. You were living in New York, but you knew that you wanted something more. And I think that, that ultimately led you to Hoffman. It led you to leaving your job. It led you to starting Apis and finding beekeeping. But I want to talk a little bit about what you said about trauma holding you back. So can you tell me a little bit more about what you mean by that? And then maybe you could talk a little bit about how you even figured that out, or what you did in your life to get to the bottom of what might be actually holding you back.
I think if you're experiencing languishing, then that's an underlying signal that you've got a lot of trauma that you haven't resolved. And whether that's capital T or little t trauma, it's pretty irrelevant. I mean, either way, you're going to have to go through it and figure it out. But I guess I'll kind of back up. So I had the ideal life. I had Google, I had an apartment, I was living in my dream city of New York. I was in a relationship that was great, or so I thought it was. And, I had everything that I had optimized and worked so hard for. And I still felt like something was missing. And looking back on it now, what was missing was probably understanding. like our trauma. And so I kind of went on this journey of like pulling all of these different rocks over to see what was like ultimately the thing that was holding me back.
What did you mean by the trauma holding you back, and like how did you start to unpack it?
So yeah, so I knew something was off because I wasn't happy, but I wasn't sad. And it was coming up in like relationships, it was coming up in friendships, it was coming up in the way that I was drinking. And so I just remember like the first big step that kind of spurred all of this was I was like, I'm sick and tired of numbing out and I'm sick and tired of not feeling. And and that was like where I went sober for 3 years and I was like dead sober. So I got into a program called Monument. It was called something else back in the day, but I was like, all right, like I'm going to figure out what is the trigger for me to like be able to move forward in life and like catapult myself into being like and feeling true happiness. So first, giving up alcohol, I think you should give up anything that ever alters your mind or minimizes your emotions if you are feeling that you cannot handle it in general. And like I couldn't handle it. I would drink and I wasn't an alcoholic by any means, but then I wouldn't leave the house for like 3 or 4 days because I was so hungover or I was so socially capped, which I think I had a lot of social anxiety at the time. Whenever I went off of alcohol, I got like in better shape. I was able to work out. I was able to even understand that like I was not like was not happy in my job. And that was kind of a real like break for me, I think, was because I worked with absolutely amazing people. I'm still friends with a lot of them. And I got the dream job. I had wanted to work at Google for so long and I had made, the money that I thought I was going to make me happy and all of these things. And once again, it still wasn't hitting. And I had a conversation with your mom about it and she was like, you should try Hoffman. Um, at the time, Google would sponsor you to do something that would like benefit you. I think they gave you like a $2,500 stipend. And I was like, fuck it. Like, I've got to get out of here and I've got to figure this out. What really spurred that was I was just in a toxic relationship and it wasn't working out. And it was really apparent that it was hitting my overall confidence. It was triggering for me. And not to blame the other person. Like, it takes two to tango. And I certainly I just like wasn't able to hold a relationship because I wasn't happy, I wasn't sad, and I also wasn't pursuing my dreams. And so that kept coming back up in my life and I was repeating it. And I was continuously repeating all of these patterns and passing them into my relationships, passing them into my friendships, passing them back onto myself and like not having a healthy relationship with drinking. So anyways, when I go to Hoffman, they take you through a like 8-hour survey of like what is wrong with you essentially, and it's a pretty intense intake form. Like, wouldn't you say it's like nuts?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Also, I want to quickly explain Hoffman to anyone who's listening to this. So Susan and I both went to the Hoffman process. I want to unpack, by the way, both of these things, the sobriety and the Hoffman separately, but after you finish. But Hoffman is a week-long focused, I don't want to call it a retreat. It's definitely not a retreat. It's basically a week of looking at your patterns, your history, your family, yourself, to walk away with a greater sense of self-understanding, self-love, and get essentially unstuck. It's been a huge inspiration for me for Shift. And and so Susan and I both did that program and we'll tell you more about it. But I just wanted to explain what Hoffman is as you.
Yeah. And you go away and you give up your phone and like you have no contact to the outside world. So the reason why I think Hoffman really works is not only that there's a somatic practice to it, but that you're giving away any outside contact. So you just have to sit with your own emotions for a week straight, which by the way is like really hard and you can go much deeper. Whereas if you're with therapy, like you're having a conversation, then you're logging off of your laptop or you're leaving the clinic, whatever. Clinic's a weird word. But anyways, yeah, so that's why I think Hoffman was great. But I just kept repeating these patterns that were like not serving me and I had to figure them out. So at Hoffman, you do this intake form and I realized that I had become the person that I was like, that had essentially hurt me, that I was like passing that on to myself and I was passing it on to others. And I didn't want to essentially like do that. And so when you go to Hoffman, there's just like so much really amazing tools that you learn on how to navigate your emotions, how to navigate life. I'm not going to share too much because as Marissa knows, it's like truly your own experience and I wouldn't want to, place my experience on anyone else. And whoever chooses to go should go with a completely open mind. And so whenever I was at Hoffman, you have to do these like exercises where you go out in nature and you see what resonates with you. And like I literally was like out there and like all these bees started landing on me. And I've always loved bees. I've always thought that they were like really fascinating. And I kind of just like brushed it off. But another thing that I came to realize when I was at Hoffman was that I wasn't really happy in New York. And I lived in a 350 square foot apartment in a great neighborhood, but I think I had just needed a break from New York after doing almost 7.5, 8 years there. And I needed a safe place to like kind of recuperate. I got out of Hoffman, I decided to go to Austin and I needed a hobby. So essentially, whenever I moved to Austin, I took up beekeeping and it's completely been the thing that's like healed me and saved me and made me find my like true happiness and alignment. And I'm like so grateful for that. And it's continuously kept giving. And like even whenever I'm like swelling up and I'm covered in stings, I'm like, this is it, like this is feeling like this is what I'm supposed to do.
That's amazing. I mean, I obviously I know your story, but it's so inspiring to me for each of those chapters that you just talked about as your friend watching them unfold has inspired my own journey. I want to talk about each of them because I think there's sobriety. And I really agree with some of the things you said about the fact that everyone should really try this if they're stuck. The Hoffman piece, which also was a major turning point in my own life. And then also how you followed joy in your natural hobbies to ultimately find your passion and now it's turning into a business. I think a lot of people think that they have to think of a business and then
Right.
it's out. But it's like following that joy is ultimately using joy as our guide. So there's so much to what you just said, but I want to start with the sobriety piece because I remember when you went sober from alcohol and this was before anyone else was doing it. Like there weren't mocktails on every menu. No one was talking about the effects of alcohol in the way that they are today.
Yeah. It wasn't cool to be sober, back in like 2021.
It was not cool to be sober and it was not common. We were also, still in our mid 20s and we were drinking a ton and you did that. A lot of people try to pressure you, change your mind. And I remember you really stuck with it. And for me, sobriety was also a big turning point in my life. In January of 2024, I decided to not drink for 3 months. And what I didn't realize is that I had done short periods of not drinking. I'd maybe done a dry January. But the longer you go without alcohol, the more it's almost like, I think scientifically it takes 3 months for your brain to fully repair itself from the kind of damage that it sustains from drinking and to fully reset where your like dopamine and serotonin levels are all normalized and you're feeling truly like yourself again. And what you said about alcohol is something that numbs you. It keeps you disconnected from your emotions. It also makes us more anxious and more depressed. And it also crushes our energy and our sleep. So when women come to me with shift and they're struggling in all of these different areas, something I ask of them is like, could you do a period of sobriety so that you can really figure out who you are and have your brain operating at like
Full
its best
capacity.
full capacity so that you are not, like so many people are on SSRIs and drinking. And if you're drinking a lot, the likelihood of you having anxiety is going to be much higher than if you're not. So there's so much there. But yeah, I want you to talk a little bit about the program that you did and how you were able to stop drinking, how you were able to stick with sobriety for a while and what you learned about yourself.
Shift, our mission is simple: to help women transform their lives by shifting the patterns that are keeping them stuck. Insight is powerful, but insight without action doesn't change your life. If you're navigating a breakup, anxiety, burnout, a career transition, grief, body image struggles, or you just have this feeling that you're meant for more, there's a version of you who you're ready to become, and we'd love to help you step into her. We do that in 2 ways through Shift. The first is through our one-on-one coaching, where we help you understand the patterns that have been running your life, build the skills to respond differently, and create the kind of lasting change that transforms your relationships, your career, your health, and the way you feel every day. The second is the Shift, our 21-day self-guided transformation program designed to help you change the emotional patterns beneath your health, relationships, career, and everyday life. Through daily lessons, guided somatic practices, journaling, and real-life application, you'll learn the Shift method and begin building new emotional patterns until they become your default. And if you're looking for ongoing support, our Shift membership launches this September. Through live coaching, guided practices, a supportive community, and a growing library of tools, you'll have everything you need to make emotional health something you practice, not just something you think about. Learn more at shiftinto.co.
So I decided to stop drinking because I was using it as a crutch for social anxiety. And it was just like me, once again, like the theme is like, I don't feel good and I'm going to turn over this stone and give it a shot. And by the way, I do drink now. I took 3 years off, but the goal of it for me was to get really clear on what wasn't working, what was working, and reestablish my relationship with it. So I'm also not saying if you give it up, you have to give it up indefinitely, but you should not be using it as a crutch by any means. So I went through this program and I also did something called Al-Anon, which your mom recommended. And Al-Anon is a great tool to understand, like, I just remember crying during it because I felt so seen. I felt like there was very little judgment. There was a great community around people that were like encouraging others to stop drinking if that was their journey that they wanted to go on. And Al-Anon also, it's not part of the 10-step, or it is part of the 10-step program. But
can you quickly tell us what Al-Anon is? Just in case some people haven't heard of it.
Yeah. So Al-Anon is for people that have been affected by others who drink. For example, if you're in Alcoholics Anonymous, you are the alcoholic. Al-Anon is for people that are in proximity to others who are alcoholics. I had a bad relationship with it through proximity. And at that time, I needed to know that like I wasn't alone and that this wasn't just a journey that I was on by myself. And I would say certainly whenever you've experienced that, it feels very lonely and it feels very isolating. So I started doing Al-Anon, and then I needed tools to help me not drink because it had been such a crutch for me, especially socially, that it was incredibly hard. And also your blood sugar goes absolutely haywire. And that's one thing that I don't think people are fully prepared for is when you stop drinking and you are consistently drinking, your blood sugar, like you have crazy sugar cravings, you have these crazy dreams because your body's not having all of this sugar from alcohol. And there are programs that are like specifically built to help you not only identify like when you're drinking, why you're drinking, and what you're trying to numb, but also like recipes and ways to kind of navigate that piece, because that was certainly unexpected for me. And then the social piece, I filled my friends in, and I don't think that it was like well received, but I just knew in my heart that it was something that I had to do. And getting like club sodas or figuring out like how to have something in my hand just so that I wouldn't feel like excluded from the conversation or from the party, etc. That was like something that Monument also taught me. The woman who started Monument, I don't know if she's still like the founder or if she's involved, but she wrote something called Quit Like a Woman.
Yep. And you had me read that, and it was really pivotal for me when I stopped drinking to read that book. Really eye-opening. I also think anyone who's considering their relationship with alcohol should read it.
Yeah. She takes the stance that like you should never drink at all, in that book at least. I don't follow her too closely, but that was like one thing that I felt was like necessary for me to take away. Another thing that I decided to do alongside quitting alcohol was to quit taking birth control. And like I said, this was the like elimination diets of all elimination diets. Birth control really made me angry during like certain phases of my cycle. And so I was like, if I'm going to go sober, I'm going sober like hardcore, like no processed foods, no birth control, no alcohol. Like if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this the right way. And I actually really think birth control was a huge contributor to my social anxiety. So beyond alcohol, I can't say exactly what it was, but I think the two paired were like disastrous for me.
It's so interesting that you say that, because this is another way that I've said this throughout the podcast, but you were the first person to do so many of these things. Like now, so many women I know, including me, including a lot of our friends, are not on birth control. But when you went off birth control, you also read a book about This Is Your Brain on Birth Control, I think, that you recommended to me.
Yes, that one too.
Yeah, and that also changed my life. But what you're saying about like birth control kind of masking your true personality and your true nature is so real. Like for me, going off of birth control, a lot of my anxieties subsided. And for anyone who isn't kind of familiar with the chemistry of this, the way that birth control works is it keeps you in a sustained luteal phase, essentially. And within a typical cycle, you have periods, your follicular phase leading into ovulation, you typically have more energy, are more social. And then after ovulation, when you move into your luteal phase, your body is preparing for a potential pregnancy and to nurture a potential pregnancy that you might have gotten during ovulation. And therefore you are, a bit more introspective, a bit more introverted. You typically eat more calories during this phase. These are all normal and great. Now I've learned to lean into and love my luteal phase, but being on the pill and feeling constantly in that phase all the time without getting kind of the high of follicular phase and ovulation, it definitely can contribute to feeling what you're saying, like a sense of social anxiety, not feeling yourself as much. And so what you ultimately did during this period of time is you pulled everything back and you looked in the mirror at who you are. And not very many people do that. It's really, really, really freaking hard. I only just did that in the last couple of years. You did it in your mid-20s, which is incredible. But when you do that, you actually can see yourself clearly. Because I think one of the problems is so many people are trying to fix things without even knowing who they are, what they want, or what needs, what could be improved. Because if you're drinking all these nights a week, if you're not if you don't stay with yourself, and it's scary to stay with yourself, you can't really make any changes.
I agree. And if you're feeling like stuck or you're feeling lost, the first thing you should do is start eliminating things and making sure that there's not extra fluff to cloud your judgment. And you can always add back in, but an elimination diet is key. And an elimination diet is meaning, maybe too much TikTok, maybe drinking a beer every day after work, maybe doom scrolling. I don't know, but you got to cut all of it off to figure out what's clouding your vision.
You also, you just reminded me of this, but you used to have really, really serious gut health issues, and you did health, you did a lot of stuff, but so bad. But I remember those kind of naturally resolving as you did all of this work too.
So I worked with Parsley and they found that I had a serious case of candida.
Yeah. And candida is also fueled majorly by alcohol.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So it was truly a dumpster fire internally. I had candida, I was fueling it with alcohol and candy and no sleep because I was out partying, and my emotions were all out of whack, which made me drink more because I was on crazy birth control.
Yeah. I also had candida overgrowth that has never come back since I've changed my lifestyle. It's kind of, it's like we spend sometimes a lot of time chasing everything but the most obvious answer. And I feel that is, that's one of those things where I also spend a lot of time trying to solve. For me, it wasn't gut as much. I did have some gut stuff, but it was more my UTIs and that range of things. And that was also massively impacted by both.
I also think if you're getting chronic UTIs, it's your body telling you something.
100%. The last time I got a UTI was 4 years ago after a breakup. I was so lost and scared and didn't know what was going on in my life. And I literally had a UTI for the entire time that I was single. And then once I was okay and felt better, haven't gotten one since. And I think my body was trying to slow me down. It was trying to slow me down from dating. It was trying to slow me down from drinking so much. I feel like it was begging me to sit with myself, and because it didn't make any sense. I really couldn't cure that UTI, and sometimes I wouldn't even test positive for a UTI. And so maybe the pain was even, there's a lot there, but I do think that UTI was put in my life to slow me down. And I think that, in the same vein, a lot of the symptoms that we have are, they can be a medical diagnosis and there can be a medical treatment, but a lot of times they go away on their own when we do all of this other work.
Agree. 100% agree.
So
there's a book by Louise Hay called You Can Heal Your Life. And her whole book is about if something in your body is happening, for example, if you have a foot that, that's a stiff toe or something, that's your inability to move forward. And I just remember for the longest time, I couldn't move my foot all the way. It was completely inflexible. I couldn't move forward. I was completely stuck. Don't have that problem at all anymore.
I'm going to put all these books in the show notes because you have been my so many of the books that I've read have really, honestly led me to want to build the company that I'm building. And that's one of them. It's like sort of the thesis of Shift is so much of what we're trying to fix is coming from this internal place. Which leads me to, okay, so we just talked about sobriety. I want to talk about Hoffman because that, again, for both of us, massively life changing. My mom, so for anyone listening to this, my mom is also a big inspiration to me in all of these things. She went to Hoffman years and years ago, and it led us to really heal. I think my relationship with her is what it is today because she went. By like loving herself more, by being more embodied, by kind of breaking the patterns that she had inherited from her parents, our relationship has been able to improve massively. And then in this last year, when I went to Hoffman, I feel like that really completed the cycle of, even though it's not like I was walking around with needing to forgive my mom for anything specific, like this deep level of understanding, appreciation, forgiveness for your parents that Hoffman gives you, whether or not you want, there's so many people who have complex relationship with their parents. It's not about like actually how you interact with them. It's how you feel about them inside and being able to find peace and forgiveness for yourself.
And nobody leaves this world unscathed. And what I've realized is probably the biggest triggers that you have on your parents is because it's something that you're repeating or it's just like you can't seem to kick that demon.
I completely agree. And can you explain that a little bit more? Because I do think ultimately the things we're most triggered by are qualities within ourselves. But yeah, explain that a little more.
So there's some, like in Hoffman, there's a concept of patterns, and a pattern. I can give an example of when I'm feeling insecure, I hyperfixate on my appearance. And that is something that's like really triggering for me is if I don't feel good, like I need to go get my hair done, my facial, like I have to work out incessantly. I have to be perfect. And that is a reaction that's not necessarily in alignment with like your higher self. If you want to go get a manicure because it makes you feel good, that's a very different path than I'm going to get a manicure because I'm hyperfixated on like everything that's wrong with me currently. That's not the right way to go get a manicure or whatever. Probably a bad example, but
no, that's like a great example. And I have that one massively. Like for me with dating and relationships, if I feel any form of rejection from a man, my initial reaction has always been, how can I make myself more perfect so that I won't face rejection? And that comes out as wanting to control my weight. It comes out in wanting to wear more makeup or
absolutely
post a pretty picture on social media. It's like basically, when you come at anything from that place of insecurity, it's ultimately never going to be serving.
Right. And it doesn't serve you because then if you're going to post a picture on Instagram and it only gets like 100 likes, a lower amount of likes than what you'd like. Let's say that because I feel like some people would be like 100 likes is a lot. Okay, whatever. Less likes than you would have wanted, then you're going to feel insecure once again. And then you get back on this vicious cycle of where you have this pattern, you try to fix it, but instead it's the exact opposite thing. And then it brings that pattern back up. And so you keep going and you never really fix it. So at Hoffman, the concept of patterns is taking a look within, identifying your patterns. And so one of my big ones was hyperfixating on my looks. And it did not come from a good place. It really did not serve me well. Like I would go and get a laser on my face. It would ruin my skin. It would hype up my melasma. But I was like, whatever, just keep doing it, keep doing it, keep doing it. I have to be perfect. I have to have this. And so when you take a look at these patterns and you realize when you're acting out of fear or you're acting out of almost like your dark side, then it never really truly heals. And then everything else that you see in your parents is going to trigger you again. So if hypothetically a parent says to you, you don't want to brush your hair or something, then you completely get triggered. Whereas reality, they probably just were like, she just got out of bed. Maybe before we go to the grocery store, could you please brush your hair? I don't know. That's a very vague example, but I'm sure there's so many times, especially as women, where moms project their own insecurities on their daughters and are like, you are getting a little fat, or you don't look like very well put together and you should try harder. Like I hear all of my friends' moms saying something of that nature, and it's because they have patterns and now it's triggering you, and then you're going to repeat that pattern and you've never really resolved it when it's, once again, just the pattern that your parent had projecting onto you.
Yeah. And the reason Hoffman focuses so much on the parents is that these patterns are things that we pick up in early childhood. So the person, the 30 now, wow, I'm 32 now. I was going to say the 32-year-old adult that reacts to any form of rejection by trying to be perfect or skinnier is really a 7-year-old who originally felt that. And these are our survival mechanisms. We talk about this too in Shift, which is like the things that the emotions that we're trying to avoid, the way we respond to these emotions, they're really old. They're not from today. They're from when we were younger. A lot of people talk about things like inner child, but it's really true. It's like our systems learn this, and our first teachers are our parents. And we have a special relationship with them where we rely on them for survival ultimately. And it is a safer thought to think when our parents do something that makes us feel destabilized, it is a safer thought to think, I will fix myself to stabilize this environment than to think that something could be wrong with your parents, who you ultimately are relying on in such a big way for your survival. So at a very young age, we learn to be quieter or go after achievement or be more perfect or, read the energy in a room and adapt ourselves, or we learn to avoid our emotions, or we learn that certain things aren't safe to express in our homes. And then we repeat those things in our relationships, in our careers, in our friendships. And ultimately, doing this work is a way to interrupt those patterns and to choose something new.
And keep in mind, that's also definitely like a caveman brain, because if you're part of a pack and you don't fit in that pack because you're too loud, you're going to get kicked out of the pack and you're just like a child. So you're trying to survive. So it's an outdated operating system, but you carry it with you. And you also have the longest hit list with your parents in general, obviously.
Totally. Yeah. And so Hoffman was like a way. I mean, for me, I would not have started this company if it weren't for Hoffman. I would not be doing okay because Hoffman also, it's not a fix all. You can't go for a week and then just be like, all my problems are solved. It opens a door to the work that you and I have both continued to do over the years of being able to feel our emotions, sit with our emotions, know where they're coming from, have empathy and compassion for ourselves and others. Like there's so much to it, but really it's like you stop feeling like a victim in your own life. You stop feeling like I have to just like anything that happens, you're going to react in a certain way. You start realizing that you have control and agency to choose something different and stop repeating those patterns. And for both of us, we had long-term relationships end after Hoffman, which I think can happen. It equips you better to prepare for that too. But ultimately, I think both of us will have very different dynamics in our next relationships because of Hoffman.
But that came from, maybe you choose your partner based off of fear or based off of what feels comfortable. This is you repeating, this is you feeling safe. The behavior that is happening is feeling safe. And that's a red flag. Your nervous system should be calm. It should not be like high, low, high, low.
Yeah, I basically saw all the stuff that you had told me that you were working on resolving in Hoffman, and knowing you so well, the dynamic in your relationship mirrored a lot of what you had been through and were trying to change. And and also though that taught me we were talking about this in the car the other day, but I have learned that people need to see things on their own unless they ask, or you can say it once, but I remember thinking, oh, I want to show her that maybe this isn't serving her. This isn't the best relationship. And you absolutely came to that conclusion in your own time, in your own way. And I think that that's something that Hoffman really does for you is these changes aren't all immediate. They take some time to settle in your body and to perpetuate into your life if you let them. Let's go over the changes you made after Hoffman. You left New York after 7.5, 8 years. You left your job at Google without having another job. You were like, I just need to leave this and figure out what I want. You started your hobbies. You changed your relationship. It didn't happen overnight, but your life, as you went deeper into this work on the tail end of sobriety, on the tail end of going off birth control and taking ownership of your health, you completely evolved your entire life. into like,
Yes. And it was a painful process because you have to completely break your ego, and it's never done. I don't think. But I think if you're feeling like languishing, it's like you have to remove all the bad in order to open up room for the good.
you know what? I was just thinking about this the other day. I think I've tried to avoid ever having to go through any of this type of stuff in my life. Like in between relationships, I've always gotten into a new relationship quickly. And I've always thought that I sort of beat the system of having to, same with jobs. Like I've been able to switch jobs into the next thing. And what I've learned is that if you want to make real changes in your life, they are not going to be easy and not without a period of stripping everything away. And so I always try to just jump from one thing to the next thing to a better thing. And I know people always say something like, it takes time to heal or you need to give yourself time. And I was like, I don't need time. I can just do it this way. But what they're saying, it's not necessarily about the time. It's about removing all the things to your point earlier about distraction. It's about removing everything back so that you actually can sit with yourself and figure these things out. And that is an inherently painful process. We rely on these coping mechanisms. For me, absolutely being loved in relationships is a coping mechanism. And alcohol is a coping mechanism. Having a prestigious career is in some ways a coping, and so when you strip those things back and you sit with yourself, it is deeply painful and scary and you can't see the end result. But I think both of us believe in our souls that like you can't get to the true other side without having some element of that process.
And I think the question to ask yourself is, how badly do I want to be happy? And if you're unwilling to do the hard shit and you're willing to go through it, you're willing to look at it, then you don't want it bad enough. And like that, then that's a pattern. And like that's some sort of like belief system that you subscribe to, because everybody can be happy. And you're not always happy like 100% of the time. That doesn't exist in my mind. But there's like true joy in life and you can experience it.
100%. And I think unfortunately, I don't know if it's because we don't believe it's possible or because it's too scary, but a lot of us accept feeling stuck as sort of
Yeah.
a state.
I actually remember a thought that I had when I was feeling like really out of alignment was, well, this is just life. Like life is supposed to be hard. Life is supposed to kind of suck. Like that is what I kind of grew up with, was like, work, life is hard, move through it, get over it. You could be, you could have it so much worse. And all of those probably could be true. I could have it so much worse, but like, why can't I have it exactly how I want it? And you can. Like, I really do believe that. But like, there is sacrifice in getting what you want. And you can have it all, but you maybe can't have it all at once.
Amen. I fully believe that now too, especially because the more you sit with yourself, the less you realize you actually need. So I think one of the reasons it might feel so daunting to some people to think that, oh, like I'll never be happy is because they think they need a million things to be happy. But ultimately, if you love yourself and you can sit with yourself and you are doing something that you're passionate about every day and your life is filled with people who love and inspire you, like that is ultimately a very happy life. And I do believe that that is achievable for everyone.
I agree. I wholeheartedly agree. But I have to believe, I have to think that you have to really want it.
You have to want it and you have to be willing to go through the hard shit to get there. I want to talk about the last kind of piece of what you said earlier on, which is you started beekeeping because you loved it and found joy. And now you found joy in it. And that has led you to starting a business. And I love that because, again, a lot of the women we come work with us at Shift say, my career, I feel really stuck in my career. I don't know what I want to do with my career. And the instinct is to go about this in a really tactical, logical way. It's to say, I could make money doing this. This is my skill set. This is the logical next step. Or it's a lot of self-flagellation for not being happy. It's like, oh, I should be happy. Like you were saying, I felt this way too, of like, everything looks good on paper. Why aren't I happy?
Right.
And what we've both found is that using joy as a guide has led us to starting businesses, but we totally did not know that at the beginning. We started by leaning into spending time in what we're passionate in. And for you, that was beekeeping, that was being in nature, that was like the art of it. You fell in love with honey, you started your company. How did you do this? Like what's a little bit of a roadmap for someone who's like, I don't even know how to start figuring this out?
I think you gotta like take your foot off the gas. Like just be present and just enjoy something that truly brings you joy. Also, I want to like preface this going back to the thing of like you can find your thing, but like it's going to take time. Like I still work a full-time job and I do honey on the side. Like it doesn't happen overnight. And I think people expect just like I wake up one morning and I'm going to become an entrepreneur and I'm going to start this CPG company and I'm going to be the leader of honey, blah, blah, blah. Like it doesn't work like that. Like things come to you, like ask the universe for signs, find your passion, do the thing that really makes you happy and take your foot off the gas of having an outcome. Because when you make a plan, God laughs. Like I literally almost canceled one of my first honey events because I just was like, this is too hard. I don't want to do it. Like just do it. When you feel a little bit of like the feeling in your stomach where it's like, oh, this is scary, jump, do it, lean in. But also don't say that it has to have a certain type of outcome because the second that you start putting very clear, defined out like goals for everything, then you're kind of almost like taking away the creativity of it. Like that's actually like kind of one reason why I don't really want to take on any sort of outside investment is like half the time the trial and error is like the creative part and that's fun for me. And I don't have the only person whose capital goes on the line is mine.
I have chills because I think you're 100% right. And for me, figuring out what I wanted to do next in my career started with me journaling about what I loved and just like I knew what I loved doing. I just couldn't understand what made money. And getting out of that mindset of everything needs some outcome in this world is so important for our overall happiness. If everything you're doing, you're trying to like juice for some squeeze, that's a great recipe to not be happy. We have to do things that just allow ourselves to be present.
Yeah, just be.
Just be. Just be.
I love it.
Unintentional pun. But yeah, I think that's beautiful because and it's also something you learn at Hoffman. It's amazing what 1 week off your phone can do for your brain. But that is like just a great piece of advice is figure out what you love doing. It doesn't have to be your end all be all passion, but just do something that you lose track of time, that you are excited to wake up and go do, that you would do for free or pay money to do it. And just start there and see where that takes you because, you know, maybe you'll start a business, maybe you won't, but the more you do,
be happy. At least while you're trying to figure it out, you're doing something that you love.
100%. Okay, amazing. So Suze, we are at time. We ask everyone 2 questions. The first is, what is something that you do every day to take care of yourself?
I say 3 things that I'm grateful for. And I'll do it right now. I'm grateful for being on the Shift podcast. I'm grateful to have a job that I love. And I'm grateful, like, we just got off of a girls' trip. And I'm so grateful I have the most amazing friends that we get to dance and laugh and be silly. And it's so fun.
I love that so much. You also were the first person I know to teach me to do daily gratitude. And it is a great way to just kind of rewire your brain and like the way you think about your life. So I love that so much. And I'm very grateful for you too.
Thank you.
Now, the next one is just where can people find you, you and Apis?
So you can find me on Instagram at Suzannah.Merritt. And then my website is apis, apis-world.com. Apis means bee in Latin, FYI.
I love it. Well, thank you so much, Suze, for coming on the podcast. We loved having you. And yeah, thanks everyone for listening.
Love you.
Love you. If something in today's conversation resonated with you, take a moment to pause and notice where it's sitting within you.
Living in alignment is not about fixing yourself or becoming someone new. It's about listening, trusting, and slowly coming home to who you already are.
Thank you for spending this time with us and for being part of this community.
If you enjoyed this episode, you can subscribe, leave a review, or share it with someone who might resonate with it too. See you next time.